Welcome, everyone, to the Contact Center Perspectives podcast. I am Steve McDonald, your host, and we have a really interesting conversation today with Michael Fulvio. Now, Michael, you're the Director of Customer Experience at SNIPES, and I'll let you talk about your retail and e-commerce experience. But what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to let you be the star of this show, we're going to talk about why we shouldn't be obsessed with CSAT. That's one of the biggest KPIs that we track throughout the industry. But what you found and with your goals and what you work towards, there's so many other things that are a higher priority because it impacts ultimately the customer experience, revenue, competitive advantage that you have in the marketplace, all those good things. But what people probably don't know, which I love to share some of this kind of stuff, is that you actually were an aspiring actor for a number of years. So when you talk very right brain or left brain here, we know that you're now doing things that are very data-driven, very goal-oriented, KPI-oriented, but you also bring this kind of innovative, creative juices, what I would say, cold to the mix. So with that, maybe explain a little bit more about your background and what you're doing at SNIPES before we get started.
Sure. So when you say I'm a recovering actor, that means I waited tables for 15 years. The small microcosm of customer experience, customer service as you can get into. It's face-to-face. And on top of that, people are hungry. I bring a lot of that to my day-to-day customer experience here at SNIPES. I took a winding road through a couple SaaS startups, unicorns even, on my way here in customer success, which was all about setting expectations and working with your customer in that way through GovTech or construction. But through life events, took me back here to Philly to be closer to my family right before the pandemic. I got laid off due to an acquisition, not even through a pandemic reasons. And then I found my way to SNIPES here, which was really fortunate. It's been a really fun journey. So when you talk about how being an actor comes to customer service, I think a lot about as an actor, you're collaborating with a lot of different artists, playwrights, directors, ushers, or people might be thinking of movies, all the people that work on that. I make a really big play every day to collaborate across all the different departments, whether that's store associates, store operations, IT, buying, allocations, our fulfillment centers. And that collaboration, I think, is really what I bring from my days in acting to my current role.
What I love about that right from the beginning is that there's still, in this day and age, there's a perspective that contact centers are cost centers, value centers, and they represent some of the largest overhead costs in the company. So one of the big KPIs is how do we reduce cost? What you're talking about is how what you're doing and how close you are to the customer gives you insights and an advisor status with the rest of the company. And then what they're doing and what you're promising and how you're fulfilling that customer experience. It's a two-way street. So that's going to be a lot of leads us down the path today to our journey. But maybe you could start out and tell us a little bit about what are your goals for the contact center? And then that'll help us start unraveling why we shouldn't be so obsessed with CSAT.
My goal overall is to turn each of our customer interactions into data that the business can use to make other decisions about what's going on. A great example is a couple of years ago around holiday, which is always a hectic time in retail. We had a really big explosion of customer service cases. It's not just because people were unhappy with us. It's about things in the supply chain that weren't working. It's about quality control issues that were happening. It's about our communication issues. So that's just 3 different departments that I touched on right there already. And how do we make sure that we're tracking that over time? And there's customer outreach reasons for those issues and communicating that back to the business. And then because every case, every customer reach out has an order attached to it, we have a dollar amount attached to each customer contact. That's not the cost of the contact center. So these are at-risk dollars because of the issues that are being reported back to the business. So that's why I really work to communicate that out to all of the business, whether that's the people buying the supplies, how many boxes we need, what type of boxes, poly bags, things like that, or just our logistics team. How many shipments are we splitting up because we're shipping them from different suppliers? And that's a real cost to the business as well. So tracking that over time helps us make decisions about our shipping policies.
One of the big things that I'm taking away there is that when you talk about at-risk dollars,
Mhm.
You're talking about making decisions based on what you know from your data in terms of what is actually helping to accelerate and propel revenue and what's putting revenue at risk and where we're losing revenue. So that's the opposite end of the spectrum of there's a cost to have a contact center and all this interaction that you're talking about. But if you can correlate it directly to revenue and saving revenue and growing revenue, then you've just flipped the equation. You're a revenue advisor to the rest of the company versus a cost center. That's a very different conversation to be having internally.
Yeah, of course, we want to respond to the customer quickly and efficiently. And whether that's a refund, whether it's a reship, whether that's promo codes that we can send out, but that's not like solving the issue. That's appeasing a customer, which of course is part of the job. But I want to solve that issue for all of the customers who are reporting these types of things.
And tell me a little bit about the authority that you speak with internally. When you're working with these other departments, you're talking in the framework of solving problems, addressing challenges, saving revenue. We talk a lot on this podcast about having a seat at the table with the rest of the company, not just a seat, but a seat that you speak with authority. What is your seat like with the rest of the company?
I understand that question, but I feel, I don't know, I've had a seat at the table, and I think I've earned that through bringing this data to our conversations and leading with that. And I don't know if I understand maybe other people, like, how do I get a seat at the table? But I've been fortunate enough that my partners here across the business and across departments and across leadership have been really open to hearing our customer issues and what we can do about it.
But I think the learning lesson for others that are listening here right now, they want to have a larger role in that seat at the table. Is one of the things you just said there is I've always come to the meetings with the data. So there's the facts behind the business and the challenges and the problems that need to be solved that aren't disputed. So you don't just come with anecdotal evidence. You come armed with, hey guys, here's a problem, here's a challenge, here's a way we can address that. It's going to impact us positively internally and externally with the customers.
Leadership will see something posted on social media and freak out. And that's an anecdote. But when you put that in a larger context of data, when you come back to leadership, you can say, absolutely, we are on top of this case and we were responding to that customer. But here's the larger context of what's causing that issue on social media that is perceived as a larger issue. But here's what we're doing and who I'm partnering with to try to make this better.
And if you could give us an idea of what's the top go-to data that you arm yourself, that you bring in order to have these internal conversations and make positive impact.
Some of the top data points I'm looking at really are overall incident rate. How many customer contacts are we getting versus how many orders per week, per month, per year, as well as our case reasons. So working with some automation, working with our human agents, assigning that appropriate case reason. And it seems like I have too many when I talk to other people about this, but to really break down, we'll talk about fulfillment, all the things that could go wrong in an e-com fulfillment order, from the address being wrong to maybe the wrong item was put in or the wrong customer's order happens. People are moving quickly, trying to get the job done. So now they hit fulfill, and now we're waiting for UPS to pick up that product. Do we have a problem with UPS coming around to one of our suppliers? Are they not coming in a timely fashion? When it gets to UPS, is it getting stuck somewhere in there? And then when after it's being marked delivered. So just 5 different case reasons for just a couple of the problems that might be from someone simply asking, where is my order? I think a lot gets bucketed under Wizmo, but we've probably got 12 different case reasons underneath that, sub case reasons, so that we can really attack those different parts of the process and make sure that everything's working right at all those different points.
So some might say, wow, Michael, you're way into the weeds. Is UPS getting to the warehouse on time? Is there a problem in the fulfillment and delivery? Is logistics responsible for that? What's your response to, no, I have to be involved in all of this?
It's about the customer expectations. We all live in an Amazon world, but we all expect things in a day or two now. So when we might not have pickups over the weekend from some suppliers and a customer orders on a Friday, they're going to be hitting us up on Sunday saying, where is this? So we need to make sure that we're working with our suppliers to get things in a way, but then also working with our IT development, our web team, that communication is laid out in the way of this expectation. If we're looking at this case reason that something's waiting for UPS pickup and we can start to zero in on what that time frame is, we can set those expectations better with our customer, whether that's automated in an email or on our front end or some other place along the way.
So anything that's responsible for delivering against expectations, as expectations are growing and growing, as an example, go back just a few years ago, whoever thought you could actually get something in 2 days guaranteed? There's a lot of things that we've been talking about here: logistics, solving problems, meeting expectations. That then goes to say, okay, there's a new set of KPIs with your data that you're tracking, which is an example of why CSAT isn't the one that you're just obsessed with. You're obsessed with the ones that are impacting directly the customer experience and delivering against their expectations. That's why you've rejiggered the list of the KPIs that you're looking for. Is that a good way to articulate it, or how would you articulate it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a cross-departmental weekly omni-channel customer experience report that is attended by people from all across the business. And CSAT is just one of the KPIs on our 20-slide deck. We're looking at how many cases are coming in. That incident rate is something we lead with. What's our first reply time? What's our average handle time? These are things that are in our control a little bit more, obviously, with those case reasons, but then also just looking at our fulfillment. What suppliers are we fulfilling from? What are their average fulfillment times? Because like I said, that's a lot of that Wismo case. What are we canceling? Why are we canceling? Where are we canceling? Is it a buy online, pick up in store? Is it shipping? Is it a store order that was made in store at POS? And we track those separately and their performance. Where are these in-store orders being placed? What parts of the country? What's our split shipments? And then, of course, what are we refunding? Why are we refunding? And social listening, what's going on social? So I just rattled off a ton of different KPIs that affect CSAT. But if we get those right, that impacts our CSAT even more than just focusing in on the CSAT. And how else could we quickly appease our customers? If we give them larger promo codes, if we refund them, if we reship, these aren't really getting to the root of the problem that's causing people to write in the first place. That's why I think we as a business are a little less obsessed with CSAT and really looking at all these other data points that are going to affect our customer experience.
Now, something that you had mentioned in our previous conversations was that the things beyond CSAT that you look at, like KPIs like incident rate and bringing that down. Now, throughout the entire industry, there is a growing perspective that incidents aren't bad necessarily, that it's somebody that's trying to use our store, somebody that's trying to make a purchase. And that's an engagement interaction that if we control that engagement and have a good customer experience, we can actually build that NPS score. We can build that CSAT. We can build loyalty. We can build differentiation. Like you said before in your store, nobody comes for the SNIPES brand as much as they come for they're purchasing a name brand on your store. So tell me a little bit about that incident rate, what you think about doing with that, and how that can actually become a competitive advantage for your brand.
Sure. Yeah. We are focused on reducing that incident rate because that's when someone's coming to us when something's wrong. Where we're looking to expand our view of the customer outside of CSAT is to hit our customer at different points of their journey with different types, like you mentioned, NPS or other CSAT scores, right after checkout, right as they get on site, post-delivery. We're opening up now our view of the customer from just outside of those incidents when they're coming to us and trying to go to them to get a better understanding of them. That's why we've made investments in social listening as well. And we're seeing a really positive response on social media that's not just people talking about their orders. So really just trying to find other ways to measure our brand and our customers' interactions with us outside of that customer satisfaction score that comes right after them reaching out to us.
And not only measure, but finding new ways where you're engaging with the customer and then you can actually work on that experience. And because one of the things we did talk about was that CX experience is one of the biggest competitive advantages you have, because of the experience of buying. There's other places where you can buy name brands, but that experience is one of the most important that differentiates you.
Yeah, something I really love about Snipes is the community outreach that we do. And we don't publicize it very much, but we are in the communities where our stores are, making community gardens, teaching coding classes to kids, giving out backpacks full of gear as school season's coming around. And we do that because we know our communities support us. And we don't ask our customers about how they feel about that too much. We hear about it on social media. We hear about it sometimes through outreach that they were glad we were there in their community that day, or driving around with a food truck on Thanksgiving or Christmas. But we're not bringing that into our view of who our customer is in a data-driven way. So I'm really looking to partner with our marketing team and our events team to add that to some of those other data points that I was talking about earlier.
Fantastic. I'm going to take a little bit of a right turn here, because part of what we talked about before was the importance of the agent once actually addressing the incidents, the questions that are coming in, and how that gets addressed. Obviously, with AI, there's lower level things that are being addressed more automatically and given chatbot opportunities so people can get answers right away. But there's always going to be the incidents that we need an agent for. In your mind, how important is the issue of agent turnover? Throughout the industry, there's just ridiculous turnover numbers that we seem to have just accepted. But on a scale of 1 to 10, if you could talk about maybe the importance of agent turnover into your overall efforts, what you're trying to do, where 1, it's not important at all. I could care less. 10, it's vital. It's critical to our success as a company.
I'll give it an 11 even. I know we talk about AI, and I'm a big believer in AI down the road. What we're finding right now is these kind of automations are amazing for first touches. But like you said, people need to know, we need humans to know how to be a little bit more curious and a little bit more problem solving than any AI that I've seen currently. Sure, they can be really nice and friendly and sound human, but we need people who are curious and empathetic to investigating our systems and relationships about what's going on and where things might have broken down. Just like any retailer, I'm sure we've got a lot of systems that talk to each other in a lot of very interesting ways, and sometimes takes a little bit of investigation to really help out that customer and ultimately turn that into data so we can take that back to the business. I've been really fortunate enough to have a team that's stuck with me for the last few years. We've added some people here and there, but luckily haven't had too much turnover. And I think that's going to really be persistent in the business for longer than anyone wants to admit.
And specifically, the role of the agent you just talked to incredibly well, but the issue of turnover.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw one of those listicles the other day that top hardest job was customer service, because you've got people coming to you hangry. I mentioned earlier, I've got an issue. I have an expectation of how you're going to solve it that's maybe based on some much larger businesses that have a lot of different options for me, or just talking a lot about first party fraud out there happening as well. And things are coming at you in all caps, or people are coming at you very loudly. It's not an easy job, and it's not easy to take that in all day, every day. So just I've been really fortunate enough to find team members that can laugh it off, that can share those calls, those texts that are ridiculous. And also I encourage my team to remind the people they're talking to that they're humans, that they're talking to.
What do you do in terms of training or culture, valuing your agents? Do you actually have that as a goal and as a mission? And how do you think about that in terms of being able to retain your agents?
Yeah. So I've got a fully remote team, which kind of happened through the pandemic, and they haven't been asked to change since they've got really clear daily metrics that we can see. Leadership's not worried about what they're doing because I can just pull out data real quick, as well as we've got some overseas support for nights and weekends. I build a culture through online Zoom meetings like this. We have a daily stand-up that is more, I think, about team bonding than sharing any data or updates. Of course, that happens, but it's a lot of laughs every morning. And I'm a Slack for lifer. So we keep a Slack conversation going all day long that is a mix of anything, and then some customer service questions as well thrown into the channel as people are like, what do you do here? I'm still asking that questions. What do you guys think I should do here? Because somehow there's a new issue not a new issue, a new situation every day where someone's bringing something new to you.
We've spent a lot of time talking about a lot of different things. If there was one takeaway that you wanted people to have, that if you're going to remember one thing, remember this from our conversation, what would that be?
I would just say find all of those data points. And if you can't measure something, figure out how to measure it. If that's running a report every day and putting it in an Excel sheet, that's how you get to the data and hopefully get people to build you some better reporting. And that's maybe automate it so that you can report on what those real issues are to your customers and not just, where's my order? Or this tasted weird. I don't know what some of your people might be working for, but turning every customer interaction into data and then finding the systems that feed those case reasons and turn that into data.
We had a chief experience officer on the podcast, but a very similar point of view to yours. And she basically said, my goal is for the agents and that feedback, that data that's coming from the customers themselves to make us smarter as a company, make better decisions on behalf of the customer, on behalf of our agents, on behalf of all the different departments from logistics to operations to the people that are designing the experience on the site for the customers. So my takeaway from what you just said is get the data that helps you be smarter and perform better in all aspects of what you do as a business. Is that a good takeaway from that?
That's a much more concise way of what I said.
I know that there's going to be people that are wanting to ask questions as follow-ups to this. Would it be appropriate that we actually give out maybe your link to your LinkedIn profile so people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the conversation.
Fantastic. Michael, thank you so much for sharing all of this and the insights. And one of my biggest takeaways is how you are relentless at going after and getting that data and how it's going to allow you to work with every different department internally. So that relentless pursuit of data, but making things better and addressing challenges is very inspiring. So thanks for bringing that to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. Appreciate it.